Welcome to February, everybody. We're going to start looking at the theme for this month. Last month in January, we took some time to consider the foundation for our spiritual practice, both taking a look at our meditation itself, the techniques that we use that we have, as well as looking at the yamas and the niyamas, the universal disciplines that we talk about in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. And this month, we're going to focus a bit more on the devotional aspect of our practice, the prayer aspect of our practice. I was asked a little while ago to give a talk at a Unity Church, which I did just yesterday, and the title of that talk was, "What if God was listening?" And the more that I got into that talk, the more I realized it's not about whether God is listening, because God is always listening. It's about whether we take time to listen. And prayer is really about learning to listen within. It's about learning to listen to that divine guidance, that divine voice within ourself, that connection to soul and source. And the reason we have these Kriya practices, these Kriya processes, these techniques, is because they allow us to calm our mind, to calm our emotions, to calm our psychology, so that we can sit in stillness, in silence, and commune with that source of life, that source of love, that source of fulfillment, that innate intelligence, that pure consciousness that surrounds us all and is us, through us. So it's not so much about whether God is listening or whether this infinite consciousness is listening. It's really about, are we taking time to listen? And that's how I'd like to focus our prayer practice this month. So ideally, you're already stable within your meditation routine. You have regular techniques that you use. You have a time that you sit and meditate every day, and you've got a decent discipline about it. Now what? Well, now you want to start including a time of prayer into your practice. And how do I do this? Well, typically, I go through the Kriya processes, the life force arousal, Kriya pranayama, listening to Om, whatever it may be, chanting through the chakras. And if you need to review these practices, there's plenty of ways to do it. On this channel, the Kriya Yoga Online channel, if you look at that again, there's a 3-hour playlist that goes over each of the Kriya techniques, the preliminary techniques, when and when not to practice them, so you can learn them that way. You may have already been initiated by a teacher, so you know them. If you want to go into more detail, at ashevillevedicastrology.com, under the Learn Kriya Yoga tab, there is a downloadable 11-hour training course. There's a downloadable 26-hour Yoga Sutras course. So there's plenty of options, both free and those that aren't free, that you can avail yourself of to learn this process in more detail. But by now, I'm pretty sure you're already solid and settled. So I go through the Kriya techniques, and then at the very end, I simply sit, and I ask that the divine consciousness be completely, 100% revealed to me. I ask that my faith be made stronger. Not that I have to know everything, but that I have that trust that this innate intelligence, this divine consciousness, this pure consciousness, this very self of everything, of who we are, be fully revealed and experienced. And this is important because oftentimes prayer is treated as though you need to get something. You want to have something healed, or you want to have something made better. And sometimes that doesn't happen. And this can be very frustrating for us because we think that if we were doing so well spiritually that everything would be taken care of. But what we fail to realize is that there is a intelligence that keeps this world running, that keeps each of our individual consciousness functioning, which is beyond the scope, the conception, of our mind. We can't know everything. We can't know why everything happens. And that's why faith is so important. Because when you have faith, and that's not belief, that's not, I know what God is, and I believe that the Savior is going to make it all right, that the holy Yogananda is going to protect me as long as I attune to him, or Jesus, or however you want to think about it. It's not that. That's belief. And that's very good. That can be very helpful. But faith is the capacity to trust when you don't understand, when you don't know. Faith is that capacity to lovingly trust in something greater than yourself, whether things are going good or whether things are going bad. There's a reason that yoga practice says that you need to let go of the attachments, the aversions, the fears, the phobias, the clinging, the grasping, because life is always going to give you something that you might not like, or going to make you want something that you don't have. That's just the nature of being in this world. So that doesn't go away the clearer you get or the more spiritual you become. That's going to be there. What happens is, as you develop faith and you're more internalized and you have that communion with divine consciousness, you're not bothered by these things. You realize there is a plan, there is an intelligence happening, and you may not be able to know what it is with this limited human mind of yours, but you are a part of it. You are a vehicle, an expression of it. So when you pray, don't pray for things, at least not this month. For February, let go of praying for things. You can pick it back up in March if you want. Simply pray for the divine presence to be completely, wholeheartedly revealed to you. If you're in a trying or difficult time, simply pray that you have the belief, but more importantly, the faith to know that while things don't always go the way you want them to, that there is a greater order, that there is a greater power and a greater purpose at work. And try to be loving towards that, appreciative of that. When I gave the talk yesterday, I'd been reading a book called The Interior Castle by St. Teresa. And in the very beginning, there's a story where she says, the translator wrote that St. Teresa was traveling around the countryside because she was traveling around setting up, I guess they were nunneries, but she was setting up these nunneries, these Carmelite nunneries, and she set up 17 within her lifetime. And she was traveling, and their donkey was pulling the supplies, and they were crossing a river, and a cord broke, and all the supplies fell off and rushed down the river, and they lost them all. And exasperated, St. Teresa went and sat under a tree and prayed. And God said to her, as she was listening, "This is a sign of my loving friendship." And supposedly she said, "Well, no wonder you have so few friends." But again, it's that kind of, something bad went wrong with this spiritual person. But we have no idea what the bigger picture was there. But the reassurance came from her connection to her concept of God, that this was part of his loving friendship. We can speculate about why or how that could be the case, but she accepted it. And throughout the ages, many of the saints and sages that I've read about or read books about, that's what they work towards. They do their best. So they don't just throw their hands up to fate and say, "I'm not going to try. There's no point in anything." They do their best within their life situation. And so they're usually pretty successful. But when things don't go their way, or when suffering comes around, they don't curse God. They don't ask what's going on. With faith, they know that there's a bigger picture happening here. And with all things, it'll pass. With all things, the darkness passes. It comes and it goes, just like clouds in front of the sun. It's just part of life. So again, this month, and I think you'll find this extremely rewarding, incorporate 5 to 10 minutes of prayer. And you want to do it as though it's a conversation, because this whole process is a conversation. You practice your Kriya techniques, you practice your meditation until you're calm, clear, centered. Then you sit in that silence. And then you bring up your prayer, however you think of God, whether it's Divine Mother, the Father, Holy Spirit, consciousness, pure consciousness, Shiva, Kali, whatever it may be. You just hold your awareness in your heart and ask, please let your full light and love and wisdom be revealed to me now. You say it in your mind, and you mean it, and you feel it in your heart. And then you sit, and you wait, and you watch, and you listen, both around you and within you. Because, as you know, with any conversation, they only work well when you speak and then you be quiet. Because if you're always talking, you're not going to hear what the other person's saying. The same is true with conversations with God, divine consciousness. You have to intend, be very clear in your intention, ask, and then wait. And this is difficult in the beginning because we're not used to hearing the response in this way. We're used to someone speaking to us. But when you pray, the response can come as a little more peace. It can come as an inner knowing. It's often an experience that you can't describe to anyone else, but you know it's there. Because we have to remember that this conversation through prayer doesn't usually happen through words. There is an intelligence beyond the mind, and knowing beyond the mind that occurs. This is very hard to explain, and I'm always tentative to try to speak about these things because they're just hard to cover. But if you can learn to practice asking, God, divine consciousness, fill this heart, let me feel your presence. And you wait, and maybe you wait 30 seconds to a minute, and then you ask again. So you do want to keep focused, and by asking again you can maintain your focus, but it's within the spaces of the asking that you're waiting and trusting. And then maybe your next question would be, help me have the faith to trust this plan, this intelligence of this life, no matter where it goes, no matter where you lead me. Help me have the faith to trust, not the belief, but that faith. Because belief, that kind of indicates hope, that you're hoping that it's going to be the case. But faith, there's no hope. There's loving acceptance of the guidance being there as it is appropriate. So over the next 30 days, incorporate this into your practice. And when you're not meditating, when you're not praying, throughout the day, take some time to be aware of what's around you. Take some time to be aware of your relationship to the people in your life. Because what you might find is that the response doesn't come immediately after you pray, after you go through the meditation. But maybe it comes through a conversation with someone, or an opportunity that arises, or a walk that you take, and all of a sudden you are aware of nature and the sound of birds around you, and just an innate beauty opens up that you hadn't seen before. These are all ways that this divine consciousness, which we are and all a part of, communicates with us. So it's not just linear. It's not just within the process of the meditation, the prayer, and the asking. It expands through the rest of your life, through the rest of your experience. So this whole month is about focusing on prayer and then listening. Just taking time to listen throughout the day as you fall asleep at night. See what you can hear, spiritually speaking. Okay, and we'll pick up next month with our next theme. So be well and enjoy February.